Welcome on Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Shami Lochanlal, and my guests are from Vodafone and from Fijian Competition Consumer Commission. Shalan Prasad from Vodafone, the Head of Commerce and Corporate Officer. Thank you very much, Shalan, for always accepting the offer to come on the show and give people a lot of information.
Thank you, Shami, and good afternoon, Fiji.
And CEO of Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission, Joel Abraham, wishing you a happy new year and welcome on the show.
Happy New Year to you too, Shami, and to all Fijians. And we're always glad to come and talk about issues that affect Fijians.
And 2018 school year has begun. There has been a lot of excitement. There has been a lot of preparation from stakeholders like Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission, Vodafone. We have another guest towards the end of the segment. We'd like to know what FNU has planned for tertiary students and Fiji buses operators. We invited Fiji buses operators to be on this show, but unfortunately we are not able to get much response from them. But anyway, moving on, Shilen, how organized is Vodafone with e-ticketing?
I think generally after the, as you know, it has been a big change for Fiji going from cash to cashless. And after the initial, anxiety and all, the system has stabilized. People now understand better how it works. Obviously, some people still leave it to the last minute. I mean, you could see, despite so much, information over the air in the media about government doing roadshows for students, people left it till the last minute, and then there were big queues, and people then say the services are not up to standard. We plan resources based on certain demand for the service, but if everyone just congregates on one day, then there's bound to be bigger crowds, and it may take a little bit longer.
You mentioned that some people were saying services are not up to standard. Would you want to clarify that?
No, I think last week on Saturday, government ran a roadshow from 4th to the 13th, and I think there was constant media notices saying that people need to come in early.
Yes.
If they get government subsidized e-ticketing cards, to come in register for, if they haven't got a card for particularly class 1 students, come and register, see if you qualify for a government subsidy, have your cards topped up so that come the school day on Monday this week, all is set for the students to go to school. But some people still left it to the last minute.
How was the roadshow? This was with the Minister of Education.
Yes.
And
I think it was very, very successful. Numbers we have with us, the last that I saw, out of the 80,000 or so students that get government subsidy, close to about 74,000 students had already topped up their cards, which was a very, very, successful roadshow exercise. Obviously, some students are away on holiday and they would have, been out of the country or in the islands. And once they get in on the mainland, they will pick up their cards. So,
what about students who are in interior who do not use buses or e-card? They may travel in boats and other things. Is there a provision for them?
The e-ticketing for now is only restricted to omnibus, which is the large buses that provide services on the mainland in Vanuatu, Viti and Taveuni. For those that travel by boats or ship, they still continue to receive the voucher, the manual voucher that Ministry of Education used to issue before e-ticketing came into being. So they are currently using that. I'm not sure in terms of the transition of them going from the voucher to the e-ticketing system,
but at the moment
they are using voucher, and these includes the rural services vehicles, in the interiors,
like carriers and other things.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Now, Joel, the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission has been working very closely with Bus Operators Association and with Vodafone when it came to e-ticketing. What is your role at the moment with e-ticketing and buses operation?
As far as the FCCC is concerned, Shami, our work in terms of bus fares was solely in my capacity as the chairman for the Independent Bus Fare Review Committee that was announced, that had the Solicitor General, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, the CEO for Fiji Revenue and Customs Services, the President of the Bus Operators Association, the President of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the LTE CEO and the CEO for the Consumer Council. So really, that was how we were involved, and we were going around having consultations in that capacity. So we were involved in looking at
You
e-ticketing.
mentioned about the bus fare review, right? So will the bus fare review or increase or decrease? Will it reflect in students' e-ticketing bus fare as well? Because there is a special discounted price for all students, right?
Well, if there is any changes, then the changes will be applied across the board, and we can't be unfair on one segment of the consumers. But really, we are not speculating whether there's going to be any
Increase.
change, or we can't say if there's going to be an increase or decrease. At
We'll
this
talk
moment.
more and at length about bus fare consultation and FCC's FCCC's role this year. Shailen, there was a lot of registration roadshows happening. What was the interest in registration, and was Vodafone able to cope up with e-cards?
Yes, I think generally this year there has been no stock out or out of stock situation for card. So all category of cards are available, and still people who want to register and pick up a card can do so. I think the important thing is that people need to realize that government we made sure that the first two cards are free, which is the first card that you get. And if you lose the first card, the first replacement is free. Beyond that, you have to pay $5 for the card. And I think people need to realize that, nobody else will continue to pay for your negligence. You need to take some responsibility, just like you keep your bank cards or your phone or some other assets, personal assets. You need to protect your card, which comes in use every day. So whilst we have been generous enough, because it comes at a cost, the cards do come at a cost, we're generous enough to give 2 cards for free. Beyond that, it becomes an unsustainable business model where you continue to provide cards for free forever because somebody else is not playing their part in terms of the responsibility they need to take. So yes, 2 cards are free. From the 3rd card onwards, you will have to pay $5, and I think it's important that people realize that there's a big change in the way fare is paid. You don't need to look for change early in the morning.
Yes,
Sometimes
yes.
you have $5, $50, $100 notes which you give to the bus driver. At the time of getting off the bus, you forget to collect the change because the driver says you take the
Yes,
change when you get out or get off the bus. So all these inconveniences that used to cause. Obviously, you have to top up the card ready and make sure that you have sufficient balance.
Yeah.
But I think gradually people are beginning to now kind of accept that.
Adjust to the changes
Yes,
as well,
yes.
because other countries are also, the change is it's important. So previously people had to carry coins in the pocket.
Yeah.
So by not carrying your card means you're not carrying money and you're trying to get in the bus. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about will students still be allowed in buses if they're not able to get the e-ticketing cards on time, and what are some reforms or advantages for people with disabilities when it comes to traveling in buses. We'll be back soon after this break. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind. Today we are meeting together to talk and give people timely reminders about going back to school, and in this case, e-ticketing, because students have to carry their e-ticket cards to be able to travel to schools. So what are some card advantages to people with disabilities, Shile?
Yes, as you know, there are 5 different types or categories of card, and these are color-coded to differentiate. There's adult card, which is red. The green cards, these are given to the Ministry of Social Welfare beneficiaries. Then the blue cards are for the government subsidized students, yellow card for the self-paying students, and the purple cards are for the disabled persons. Or is it green? No, I'm pretty sure it's the purple cards. So those who receive the the cards under the special category, which is the disabled persons, they need to get this through the Ministry of Social Welfare, because they have a database of those who receive assistance, and they need to register their disabilities with the Ministry of Social Welfare to qualify for the benefits under that. And one of the benefits that comes under that is free bus travel. So I think the Fiji Bus Operators Association and government have entered into an arrangement where they will allow people with disabilities to travel for free on the bus. But they carry a card solely for the purpose of providing some statistics in terms of number of people who are traveling with disabled cards, number of times they travel, so they can calculate what value of assistance the Fiji Bus Operators is providing under this arrangement to the government through the Ministry of Social Welfare to these beneficiaries. So I think for that purpose, everyone has a card, and every time they tap, they actually take account of how many. So they don't need any balance on the card. These are exempt cards, so they can carry with travel with zero balance and tap. So they will record who's the person who's traveled, and obviously there's no fare, so the government is able to quantify. And
so while we're generally talking about e-ticketing cards, Joel, you carried a public consultation with the bus fare reviews in regards to bus fare reviews, and now everyone is required to carry e-ticketing cards. Now accessing to bus, getting into buses for older people and people with disabilities, was there any comments made in this regards as to how Bus Operators Association is going to make buses more accessible?
Well,
entering the bus?
During consultations, issue of driver conduct was brought up in various instances where people said that they were not being assisted to a certain extent. But then misuse of cards were also brought up by certain bus operators during the consultations as well. One of the stories that was brought up, or one of the incidents, was some person got on with a disability card, and they asked, and the driver saw that the person looked quite well, so he asked the person, said, what sort of disability do you have? The person turned around and said, I'm deaf. And then he went on and sat down. So those are some examples of abuse that is also happening. Then there were issues of parents taking.
Also, he was asked, but he was able to hear it.
Yeah.
So, and there were other incidents where parents took the red normal adult card, and then they used super glue to stick the blue card under it. So when showed the red card to the driver, tapped the blue card and went and sat down. And after some time, the driver noticed it and then confronted the parent. Then it became a matter of some abuse to the driver. Again, so there were quite a few issues on both sides, and the people with disabilities that had said, yes, we are quite happy that we are now given access. Elderly people came and said the e-ticketing system is really good because it allows them that access. Sometimes what would happen is they would have to produce an ID, and it had its challenges for them.
Right.
So they prefer the e-ticketing system,
which is good for the country too, moving forward. Now, Shailen, tell me, will drivers
Shami,
also...
if I may add, I think when the e-ticketing system was being brought on, the idea was mooted that we bring about e-ticketing. The concern was how will the older generation adapt it. In fact, they are the better ones. They are the ones who are using it without really any major issue. So I think sometimes we underestimate people. And these people, they are experienced people. They have gone. Many of them are educated and now retired. But they do understand, how to manage their funds better, how to top up their cards in a timely manner, how to safe keep this. So I think, contrary to what the belief was, in fact, the retired and, the social welfare beneficiaries are actually using the card better than some of the other people.
That's a good remark, and they must be complimented for that, matured people, and we should follow suit from them. So Shailen, when people do get in the bus, if someone doesn't have a card, is there a provision for bus drivers to carry extra cards, or they keep handy?
All bus drivers by law are mandated to carry disposable card options, and these come in denominations of 2, 5, 10. In the denominations that we have our currency. So people do have the option of purchasing a disposable card from the bus driver and being able to tap and pay the fare. So they pay for the card in cash. They don't pay the fare in cash. They buy the card and then pay the fare using the card so that it's captured in the system. Having said that, there are options also. I'm sure we do make our own arrangements. Sometimes some buses may not have a particular denomination of a card because stocks do run out, and I think we need to be pragmatic and practical about it. So if there isn't a card on the bus, there are obviously your friends or somebody who's traveling on the bus whom you could give the cash and they can tap for you. These arrangements are working and working well.
Can I tap for my friend if my friend is getting in the bus? He doesn't have a card, but can I
absolutely
tap
can
it twice?
Absolutely can.
Yep.
So you can give the money to your friend and the friend taps for you as long as they have sufficient balance on the
All
card.
right. So are all buses at this very moment as we speak fully operational with e-ticketing machines?
100%.
Yeah, and these e-ticketing machines are working without any problems.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. And
I think one of the things that I'd like to highlight here is a lot of people say, Vodafone is providing the service. What if the network goes down? The e-ticketing system works completely independent of the network. It doesn't need the network to run. It's an offline system. And the reason it's been designed that way is if tomorrow there's a cyclone or a flood and the Vodafone network were to go down, the buses can't stop running. So it has to work independent of the network. And I think it's very, very important that people realize that, even in some of the interior regions where the buses go, because of the geographical terrain, we may have some black spots where we don't have the network coverage, but the people still may stay there. And if they get on the bus, they are able to use their cards.
Okay, thank you for clarifying this. I think this is very important, the reach and the fact that e-ticketing has happened and it's gaining momentum and parents are becoming responsible. Students are also becoming very responsible and ensuring that they're carrying e-ticketing. Thank you very much, Helen, for coming on the show and clarifying and giving such important information. Thank
Always
you
a
very much.
pleasure.
Yes. We'll take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Joel Abraham, the CEO of Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission, right after this break. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Shamilochan Lal, and my guest this moment is Joel Abraham, the CEO of Fijian Competition and Commerce Commission, in short form, FCCC. So, Joel, a lot of business houses and traders have been promoting the back-to-school campaigns, and not only teachers but parents and students have been taking advantage of this. What is one message that you'd like to send to them and guardians when they plan their back-to-school shopping?
One of the things that we always say to consumers generally is when you're going out having seasonal shoppings, and when I say seasonal shopping, it would be Christmas, it could be New Year's, it could be back to school as well. It is essential as consumers go out that they go to various traders, they go to different businesses and actually look at the prices that are there for offering. The reason is simply because you could easily get a good bargain and you could save quite a lot if you go and look at a few things. Now, generally, the way in which traders advertise, they'll advertise for specials on a few things, and then, of course, they make their money on a few other things. So I think for smart consumers, I think it's essential that you shop around, that you look at the different prices. It won't take long. For back to school, there's few stationery shops, there's few footwear shops. So going around and basically looking at some of these things, it becomes essential, and it saves a lot of money. So that's one advice that I would give them. And the other advice would be, if you find anything that you feel is suspicious, any transaction, any product that is being offered to you, you find that it is not of a certain quality that you think you ought to pay for, please notify us so that we can go and investigate these issues, because it may be something bigger. You could just be scratching the surface and we find something.
So did you get lots of complaints from a consumer last year, and how did you handle it?
Well, last year in total we have conducted over 9,000 inspections for various traders, and we are big on going out to the market and having market surveillance. We've received quite a few complaints. that we have mediated and resolved. We've visited, our focus has been in the rural and maritime areas where we've gone out and looked at traders in these various regions. An example is went down to Kandavu at least 3 or 4 times, looked at the traders there, spoke to them, ensure that they comply. Really, when we look at the business climate or the business environment, the economy is doing quite well. We've got 80 years of economic growth, and just means people have more money in their pockets. Government's tax reforms that have happened, the income threshold has increased, and because the economy is doing so well, so on one hand you have a lot more going around the economy, and then two, the taxation rates have come down, and then you have other incentives such as free books, free education. So all these things, they amount to more money in the hands of consumers.
And like you said, that we need to protect our consumers, and
Yes.
your organization is
Yes,
doing a great
definitely.
job. So how many businesses and traders did FCCC prosecute in 2017?
Okay, so in 2017 we took 59 traders to court, and that is not the only thing that we do when it comes to traders that breach. We have given fines to about 136 traders, and 193 traders were noted as first time offenders have been counseled, and the follow-up visits were done. So I mean, generally we noted that compliance levels were quite good. During the Christmas season, we noted that compliance levels were above 80%, which is almost the first time in FCCC's history. The only other year that we noted compliance level touching 80% was last year, but 5 years before that it was an issue. We were just hovering around the 60% mark, and traders were not coming on board, and we attribute this to our the change in our approach, the strategic direction that our board of commissioners have given us really is to engage with the business community, really to go in there and change the mindset and encourage compliance as a behavior, as opposed to just handing out fines wherever you feel.
What
is
was the
necessary.
highest fine paid by a trader?
So the highest fines were given by the courts of $20,000 each to two particular traders. The second highest was around 15,000 and 10,000. So the courts are also coming down hard on traders, and these were issues to do with misleading advertisements, where there was a different offering, and then when you went and you found something else. There's also.
So this was brought to your attention by a consumer, or the FCCC found out about this?
Okay, the FCCC during its routine inspections, we found issues of difference in the counter price and the shelf price. So while conducting inspections of the particular traders, we went and we looked at the price that was stated on the shelf, and then we scanned it on the counter. It was different, and then we said, probably the dollar value that you're scanning, maybe 50 cents, 20 cents, or even $1, maybe less. But you take that and look at the thousands of consumers that go through the shops that think, oh, I'm getting a discount. Because when really the reality is, when people go in supermarkets, they're buying a trolley worth of things. They're not buying one item. It's not a business model that is based on single purchases. So by the time they come to the counter, they probably would have forgotten what the price was.
Yes.
So I think it's our duty to ensure, and the courts are also looking at it in a very strict manner, and that is why penalties of 20,000 each was imposed.
Yes. Now tell me, Joel, the FCCC also looks at rent freeze too, and all these years we've had continuous rent freeze. What is the status this year, 2018? What's going to happen?
Yes. So what is happening is, I think when we discussed this issue last year, we had said we need to look at a comprehensive legislation, and the FCCC went around doing consultations. The response was not what we had expected. An example is, say, in whole of the Central Eastern Division, which is, say, just take for example the Suva-Nosori corridor, where we had 3 rounds of consultations in Suva and 2 rounds each in Nasinu and in Nosori. Combined 8 people turned up to the consultations.
And were these mostly landlords or tenants who turned up?
Well, we had a combination of landlords and tenants, but 8 people out of the so many rented properties, which basically brings us to our suspicion. Yes, rent freeze has been there for some time, but what happens is there is a high degree of collusion between landlords and tenants. So when somebody wants to move into a flat, what happens is they know the rent has been increased, they accept it. By the time they move out and they have or something happens, so there's a breakdown in the relationship, then they come to us, lodge a complaint and say, look, the landlord has illegally increased the rent. Now, there were certain instances where we noted that we went, did inspections, the tenant said 500 rent, the landlord said 500 rent, the tenant showed us the receipt of 500, the landlord showed us the receipt of 500, agreement said 500. When the tenant actually, there was a breakdown in relationship a few months later, the same tenant
Then
comes
people
up
come and complain.
and said 700 was the rent we
Yes.
were paying.
Joel,
So
we'll take a break, but when we come back, we'd like further clarification on rent freeze. When is there going to be cease on this? I mean to say, when will this be lifted? Because people are complaining, and I think for a number of years there has been consultation happening. What is the legislative and the legislation around that? We'll talk more about it. And if you want to call and join the discussion, please do so soon after this break. Call us live on Gold FM. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind. My guest is the CEO of FCCC, Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission. Now, Joel, we were talking about rent freeze. Rent freeze has been there and very stagnant for a number of years. People have not been able to increase rent, whereas prices of other items has increased, right? And I know there are a lot of landlords who are complaining. You mentioned earlier that, and we talked about in our earlier programs, that we need to re-look at the legislation. And there has been a number of public consultation. Why hasn't there been any proactive or positive outcome in this area?
I think we attribute it to people just being comfortable in their own space. So what happens, Shami, is when we have people that go out and get rental property, say there's 4 of us that go for the same property, say 3 of us are very law abiding people, and we say, look, there's a law, we will not break it, we will not aid or abet you in breaking the law.
Yes.
But the 4th person goes and says, okay, look, I want this rental space, and I'm ready to pay you something off the record. Right. And again, I come back to the fact there's a high degree of collusive practice in the market, and what doesn't help is the landlords and their agents are also engaging in some of these activities.
But what does that have to do with the freeze on rent? Why doesn't FCCC say, okay, we are lifting the ban on rent freeze, because it has been stagnant for a number of years?
Yes, I mean, imagine if we were gonna come out tomorrow and say rent freeze is lifted. Now, given that it has been there for quite some time now, lifting it without phasing it out, an abrupt lift would be catastrophic, really.
But we can't say it would be an abrupt, because there has been public consultations happening for a number of years, right? Will we be able to see any outcome soon?
But the policy really has been, there has been a freeze, and we can't just come to a point where we say no freeze. Freeze to no freeze, there has to be some degree of transition. And
has there been any degree of transition in the past?
Well, again, we come back to the point where the consultations have been quite poor in terms of getting consultations from people, getting their views, getting their opinions. We even went to landlords, tenants to give their views on how they would see this to be progressing, or how do we look at issues of phasing it out. Now we've got some idea of how we want to do it, and that's captured in the legislation. But then again, the legislation needs to be passed, and it needs to come into effect to enable us to lift it. And I would say we are very close to that in this process. And I mean, until such time that is done, we have to continue with the freeze, because there is no mechanism to allow it to be lifted. Because currently, as I said, the laws are all fragmented. It is all over the place. If it's an issue of distress of rent, then you might have issues in the market, say tenants are not moving out.
So when
Hmm.
would we expect a lift on this?
Well, Shami, I know what you're trying to get at, but we can't really speculate on what will happen because we don't want to disturb the market by saying, okay, we think this is going to happen or this is what the expectation is. My job is not to speculate on what will be done as far as policy is done. Our role is to ensure that we get the views of people, we set the laws in place, we set the policies in place that are right, that will enable the policymakers to say yes.
Has there been any progress in policy making?
Yes. 1 year ago, we did not have a legislation. Now we have one in draft format that has been submitted, and we will see that some progress will definitely be made.
Okay, let's look at bus fare reviews. What was the outcome of bus fare review last year in 2017?
Well, again, that was we had gone for consultations, and the consultations have completed. Now, this was as opposed to the rental one. We had more than 13,000 people coming and giving different views. And when we looked at the views, there was almost about 15,000 or so different forms of submission. So one person made a couple of submissions on various issues. So,
what was one major issue that people raised?
Well, the majority have advocated for a reduction in bus fares. People have asked for improvements in service,
the aging of buses, the
renewal of fleets, smokes coming from buses, conduct of drivers, environmental impacts. So these are some of the issues that were brought up.
How is Fiji Buses Association looking at improving all these things?
Well, they are quite proactive in working together with the committee. We have the president on our committee, and they have attended a few consultations, and they've firsthand experienced what the traveling public has to say. I think it's a good start. And with this e-ticketing system coming in, now we have access to real-time data, so we don't have to rely on what bus companies say their revenue is. Now we know what their revenue is.
So after the bus fare review, which was happening last year in 2017, when will we get a proper outcome, and when will some legislation be put together, and a comprehensive legislation when we talk about that?
The committee was looking at specifically at bus fares, but while we were looking at bus fares during our consultation, there were various other issues that were highlighted. And all these issues have a cost component, and if they have a cost component, they have an impact on fares. And I think for us, it is essential that we do not hastily make a decision. It is important for us to examine all the facts and do what is fair, to do what is right.
How long will it take?
We are in the final stages of completing the report, and we should have something soon.
Okay, we'll definitely call you back
Yes.
to find out more and then to see a final result and outcome. So what are your plans for 2018?
Well, for FCCC, 2018 is an important year. This is the first year that we are looking at our strategic plan that is there, and this year we're looking at launching our strategic plan, doing a rebrand. As you know, the name has changed from the Fiji Commerce Commission to the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission. So really, there's been a change in strategic direction, and we'd like to start our year by doing a launch. So we're looking at the first quarter of 2018 to do our launch, and then basically to go out and do a lot more community engagements and awareness. We'll be visiting schools, visiting communities in efforts to make consumers aware of their right. What we found is when consumers are empowered by knowing their rights, what they do is they're able to resolve a lot of issues on the ground. And
then definitely they are aware of their rights.
Yes,
Joel,
of course.
thank you very much for coming on the show, and you highlighted on some very important issues, and we really look forward to something done to rent freeze. I'm sure you're working on that.
Yep.
And you've been very diligent and very persistent and assertive on that. And of course, the bus fare review, we'll look forward to the outcome, and we'd like to have you on our show again. Thank you very much. Stay with me because I've got another guest on the show, which will be our last segment. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind. My guest is Professor Haley from FNU. Professor, welcome on the show.
Thank you.
So, Professor, you are with the Fiji National University. And FNU has moved from trimester to semester from 2018 for new students. Tell me more about this.
Okay. We did a very comprehensive review of our entire academic portfolio, looking at a whole range of indicators in terms of student success, graduate employability, and so on. And we made the decision on academic grounds to move to a semester-based system with common course sizes. And as a consequence of that decision, we've done a wholesale curriculum reform. So the entire academic portfolio of the university at undergraduate level has been revised and restructured to strengthen the quality and improve the student outcomes.
Yeah. So the school year for 2018 has begun. Do you have any programs for school dropout students who Form 4, Form 5, Form 6 students who have failed the exams? Do they have any future with FNU?
They do if they go through first the Technical College of Fiji. So we have a memorandum of agreement with the Technical College. Students can enter that at age 16 and progress through certificates 1 and 2, and then we have a pathway through to university into certificate 3s in engineering.
What new programs are you offering this year?
We've a raft of new programs. We've refreshed, as I said, the entire undergraduate portfolio, and we've taken the opportunity to add new programs in, for example, early childhood education, in engineering, in professional accounting.
Sorry to interrupt you, Professor. You mentioned about early childhood education, right?
Right.
Tell me more about that.
There's a large sector in Fiji of education for children below school age, at kindergarten, and that sector's becoming increasingly professionalised, and we're providing now professional qualifications for teachers of
So you're
kindergarten.
preparing teachers who can at some stage take on this, like they can start or be in schools to educate or look after students who are at a certain age level. Is that
Yes,
what you're trying to say?
kindergarten, age 3
In
or 4,
kindergartens,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So we were talking about other new programs offered by the university.
Yes, we've got a range of new programs in engineering, in mechanical, in civil, in a lot of the national priority areas. These are particularly designed to cater for students leaving the Technical College of Fiji, and also for students who complete Year 12. They can enter 3-year trade diplomas now.
You mentioned about Year 12. So programs which Year 12 and Technical College Fiji students can undertake exclusively with FNU via TSLB loan scheme. Would you tell us more about that?
Yes, in the budget, the government announced that students who graduate from the Technical College of Fiji with a Certificate 2 or complete Year 12 can enter engineering programs at FNU with full TEL support. And so we've developed a suite of new programs at Certificate 3 and 3-year diploma programs in a range of engineering courses to cater for that new market.
And Professor, about capital development projects which the university will undertake in 2018, including work on the Lambasa campus, etc. Would you highlight that too?
We have, about the last year or two, we have had a very large and rapidly growing capital program. So our capital program in 2018 is just over 50 million. So it's one of the biggest in the country. We're building a new campus in Lambasa, purpose-built campus in Lambasa, which will be state-of-the-art. We're building a new animal hospital and laboratories at Coronivia to support veterinary science and animal husbandry. We're building a new business school on the senior campus. We're building a new creative arts building on the senior campus. So we've a very large amount of capital work going on.
A lot of projects at hand. When would it complete?
They all are on a different timeline. Some of them are complete within 1 year. Many of them are 2 or 3 year projects.
So as you speak, I'm thinking and looking forward to having more vets in Fiji. At the moment, it is very difficult to find a good vet.
That's correct, and we'll be graduating our first cohort of veterinary science students this summer.
Right.
Coming summer.
What are some other tailor-made courses for students who may excel or have interest in mechanical or trade work? What does FNU provide in that sense?
We provide the full gamut of mechanical, civil across the board. But increasingly what we're doing is we are developing courses with employers so that we're actually aiming to provide programs that directly feed into employment.
It's
So,
like apprenticeship, you mean to say? The students who come at FNU to study, they're also sent on practical job trainings as well?
we do have a significant apprenticeship program, but all our regular programs have extensive industrial attachments, so that the students are work ready when they graduate.
How will you work with your stakeholders like Ministry of Education? Just recently, there was job tests for teachers and English tests for teachers. Definitely, the Education Ministry will be looking at engaging with FNU. Do you have programs for teachers?
We already have extensive professional development programs for in-service teachers. Many of the teachers in Fiji only have only hold diplomas, and they can upgrade to Bachelor of Education in service, doing that on a part-time basis. And we will be working with the Ministry of Education to enhance other ongoing CPD, continuing professional development programs to support, for example, English language.
So FNU students do graduate and then they go to in schools to teach certain subjects, right? These are graduates from FNU also who are teachers in teacher training
Correct.
programs.
I mean, we have a significant teacher training
Right.
program.
So now currently the situation is, and which everyone is talking about, the fact that some teachers are failing in English test. Has FNU worked and groomed the teachers well to be out in the field to teach?
I think we need to make a correction here, and I think the AG has been very clear about this, the relevant minister, that this wasn't a fail-pass test. This was an assessment of for new teachers of their English language ability,
right,
in order that they can be supported with professional development as they're studying. So there's no sense in which there's a pass or fail and the students aren't
I
prepared to teach.
understand that, but it was most to do with the English efficiency test. Does FNU also ensure that the teachers who come and get enrolled and after they graduate, new graduates, does FNU look at training them, giving them training on subjects and languages as well?
It's an integral part of the preparation that they get, is that they take courses in English communications and so on. So, but it's important to understand that when teachers walk out of the door, they're not fully formed. In all professions, there's a period of continuous professional development as the new teachers learn on the job, and that's what the ministry is trying to do, is to support them in their professional development.
Thank you very much, Professor Haley. I'm sure there are a lot of students who have just graduated from school will be definitely coming to FNU for enrollments and to get more information. Our radio stations has had a number of was part of the number of roadshows with FNU, and we wish you all the best for 2018.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see you next week on Tuesday on Speak Your Mind. Thank you for being on the show with me.